The incomparable Heather Watts grew up in Los Angeles, California, where she took her very first dance classes and soon fell in love with ballet.
So my dream was to work for George Balanchine. And so sometimes when I'm a little down, walking down the street, I say, well, you know what? You did it.
You did it.
You work for George Balanchine.
Take me back to the time you're in California. You're 11 years old, and you have a little bitty role. Who's on stage with you?
Suzanne Farrell, Edward Villella, Arthur Mitchell.
Midsummer Night's Dream?
I was a bug. I carried Eddie Villalla's cape.
Right.
You know, Suzanne Farrell was 18 years old. She was the most beautiful thing. I had never seen anything that looked like that in my life. And, you know, at one point the little bugs kneel and you look up. I just realized that Balanchine had created all these otherworldly things.
After studying at the School of American Ballet, Heather joined the New York City Ballet in 1970 and became a principal dancer in 1979. She was one of the last Balanchine ballerinas, inspiring and working closely with legendary choreographer George Balanchine. Throughout her 25-year career with the company, she was acclaimed for her delicacy, sensuality, and bold stage presence, an international star who defied category. Balanchine gave her principal roles in his masterpieces, including Agon, Concerto Barocco, Symphony in C, and Apollo. Numerous principal roles were created on her by Balanchine, Jerome Robbins, and Peter Martins, among many others.
She was a very special ballerina, and so many of us look up to her. That jump, those turns, those feet, that body.
So full of contradiction and curiosity. She was long and had powerful energy and generous spirit. And she was also strange and quirky, and her curved back and bony structure and her jaunty way of moving made it possible for her to really capture the full range of human life in her dancing. She could be joyous, but she could also be internal, almost intellectual, and could be dark. I admired her enormously as a dancer, one of the great performers of the 20th century.
In the 1980s, Heather was one of the first artists to publicly join the fight against AIDS. She was a founding member of God's Love We Deliver, first cooking in the kitchen and later taking on a leading role in creating awareness and fundraising.
She led the New York City Ballet team, which was the model for Teams for the AIDS Walk. She organized and she was an activist on the front lines, fighting for the lives of so many, and just being the personal voice of hope and also of fight and determination to make a difference.
The Heather that I know is someone who is so much fun. In between the fun part, the playfulness, is this soaring imagination. It's about an instinct, an intuition about things in general. I think Heather has one of the best beginner's minds of anybody I've ever met. And by that I mean one that starts out not judging, not saying this is the way it ought to be, but really looking at something that deserves interest, and she finds it.
I arrived in New York in 1984. It was a year after Balanchine had passed away. And the New York City Ballet was obviously in a state of deep emotional loss, and it was held up by individuals. And that's where I really saw Heather for the first time on the stage as Balanchine's last protege, someone who was carrying the immediacy of him with her every time she went on stage. And I think that that's carried over into her second lives as educator and mentor and coach and advocate for Balanchine.
Many of the roles that I've learned, she was in the room for when they were being created or restaged, and she got notes from Balanchine himself.
I wanted Calvin to know this like he knows the inside of his own arm. And I wanted Unity to know that. What you see in that picture right there. I wanted her to know that person. I wanted her to find that person, to drive that story for herself.
Now that she's on the other side of it and she's paying it forward and bringing up that next generation in these roles, and I think his legacy is definitely in great hands.
Heather has remained a powerful force in the dance world. She has served as contributing cultural editor for Vanity Fair magazine, created courses and taught at Harvard, Princeton, UC Santa Barbara, as well as the Dance Education Laboratory. And she was an inaugural fellow at NYU's Center for Ballet and the Arts. She has received so many well-deserved awards, including an honorary doctorate from Hunter College. Heather has devoted her life to keeping Balanchine's works alive, teaching classes, giving lectures, and mentoring today's dancers. She has coached and curated Balanchine's works at the Vail Dance Festival for the past 15 years.
I would see a lot of people over the years do a role. And so I already had a lot of ideas, and they would be filtering through. I'd be bringing them in. And then I had Balanchine saying to me, "What are you doing, dear? No, do like you." So we sort of shared that process with Balanchine through my memories and through my total insistent that you stay, Tyler.
Heather has been undoubtedly the biggest inspiration for me throughout my dancing career, and she has always pushed me to be me.
She sees each and every artist that she works with as their own.
She pushes me to think beyond what's right in front of my eyes. She challenges me to be daring and bold, and she also gives me the confidence to believe in my own vision.
My wife, Heather Watts, is the ultimate partner. For me, as her husband for 21 years, I've had the true evidence of that. But I can also remember when I danced with her, and she mentored and educated and raised our collective possibility. I got to dance with Heather. That was really an overwhelming notion, and looking back, it still is.
I would have to be the greediest person on the face of the earth to think I missed something in this career.
What more could you squeeze out of a ballet career? I got so much more than there is to get.
Everywhere I danced, I loved it.
The passion and generosity Heather demonstrates in all of her work comes naturally. She is a caring person, full of love and inspiration.
Thank you, Heather, for your years of extraordinary dancing, brilliant artistry, and ceaseless generosity that is spilled into your coaching, your teaching, and your supporting artists who will continue to enrich this discipline that we all cherish so dear. I honor the fact that you stuck to what was inside of you and listened to it, because that relationship is what creates the original, and the world sure needs more originals.
Because of Heather and her lifelong dedication, future generations will continue to be inspired by the iconic work of George Balanchine.